We're live. Well, it's taking a little while for people to show up today. Ah, there we go. Hello. You know the drill. I'm going to keep talking for a little bit while people show up. Maybe I'll take another sip of water. So, happy to report it's very hot in New York today. Very sunny. This whole week, as I spill water on myself, this whole week on Geek Speaks Greek. Oh, hi. By the way, this is Geek Speaks Greek. I am your geek, George O'Connor, clearly speaking English, but the Greek in this instance is me talking about different characters from ancient Greek myth, be they goddess, god, hero, or monster. This whole week was kind of like the close to home week on Geek Speaks Greek. I like to theme my weeks a lot, and I wanted to do gods and goddesses that you could literally see yourself. So we started off with Mother Earth herself, Gaia. You just have to go outside and look down, or maybe you're outside already, look down. I mean, anywhere. We live on her, so she's a pretty easy goddess to find. Wednesday was up in the air. It's been kind of rough here in New York City quarantining, I'm not going to lie. We have lots smaller places than a lot of places in other parts of the country. We don't have a lot of private outside space. So days where it's not sunny can be like a stone cold bummer, right? And so I had made this, I had said, like, depending on how the weather is Wednesday, if it's cloudy, because we'd had a lot of cloudy days, we're gonna do Selene. And if it was sunny, we're gonna do her brother Helios. Lo and behold, it was sunny. I'm not gonna complain. This guy's never complained about it being sunny. So we did Helios, the sun itself, on Wednesday. And then today, I mean, it's a little bit like the sky's a little overcast, but still sunny, and it's super hot. So, like, I mean, we're getting into, like, summer here. It's been, I don't know, I'm pretty sure we've been on this kind of, like, this pause for about 25 years now. That's what it seems like. But, so today we're going to be doing Selene, or Selene, the moon. New drawing pad, I want to point this out. One of the other things about being in lockdown is you can't just run to the store and buy stuff as easily as you used to be able to. And I just finished up one of my drawing pads. I was like, oof, I'm going to go dig around for some. Just walking down the street today, somebody throwing away a perfectly good pad. It's a little bit smaller, but, hey, I'm not going to knock a drawing pad, free drawing pad in the mouth. Wait, knock a free... Guys, don't mix your metaphors. It's not good. So, yeah. So, hi, everybody. Before I go any more further with my random ramblings, I'm going to share some art. As if you've watched Geek Speaks Greek before, you know that the people who watch it tend to be very involved. I always draw a couple pictures of the deities that I'm talking about, but you, the watchers, will come up with like this amazing artwork that you will send to me. And today we have quite a bit. A lot of it is Helios themed because we did him on Wednesday. Ooh, I left the window open because it's so hot. I hope that's not going to be a problem. Every once in a while a bus goes by. Well, we'll see if it's super loud. First, this is from... Well, actually, this is a collaboration. We've seen work from Joseph a lot. And then recently, his little sister Juliet sent in a piece as well. And the two of them together, seems they collaborated on what is probably the best picture I've seen yet from them. This is Helios, clearly. I love this. I feel like, I don't know if it's the collaboration or just like a lot of practice. Joseph, you've taken this to the next level. If Juliet's the thing helping push it over, way to go. You guys are a great artistic team. Very proud of you guys. You guys really are drawing the heck out of this stuff. Oh no, are we doing this thing again where it's going to be stuck? Nope. Okay. All of a sudden, my iPad decides to act up whenever I'm showing up to you guys stuff. Okay. Some of this stuff I was working so much on Dionysus to the last second that I didn't really do much prep work today. And by much, I mean hardly any. So I didn't even get to see some of this artwork. So this is a great one. This is, Yehi, who has sent us stuff. She comes all the way from Korea. She sends us amazing work. This is one of her comics. I'm going to post this one up later so you can all see it. This is kind of, it's a take on like the famous story of the fox and the grape, the Aesop's fable. We can see there's Aesop as we see him in my book Hermes. There is, what's his name? Argus Panoptus. And Dionysus in, I'm going to assume, a drunken state, crashing it. I haven't actually gotten to read this one yet, so I'll check it out later. Hopefully there's not full of like, you know what? I'm going to go close that window. I'm sorry, I know this is super unprofessional. I'll be right back. Hi, did you miss me? Okay. The fun of doing a live show in New York City. By the way, I just want to talk about my hair for a second. I mean, look at it. I'm going to have to do something pretty drastic pretty soon about like what sort of haircut I'm going to get. I don't really want to do a haircut, but I mean, look at it. Even my girlfriend who loves my hair, the messier the better, she's kind of like, what's going on with your hair? I'm like, I don't know. It's just reached that level. So this is from Eleanor, who, if you watched on Wednesday's show, Eleanor, I think, was the one who asked who was Helios's wife. And I was kind of non-committal, because I'm like, Helios has been with a few people. Clymene was the one who I offered up as the most logical thing. So, oops. What Eleanor did, and I think this is super cool. Here's Helios, of course, the striking, tall, glowing yellow figure. She made up a wife for him, Helia. I mean, if that's not something that already exists, it should. And look at that. I really like the way Helia has the colors that really complement Helios. I love like the way her hair is kind of like wafting through the air like flame. Here's you're also like, it's really amazing how I've been seeing some of your work. Like some of you people have been sending in a lot of drawings for a while. I could see that you're getting better by drawing every day. And that makes me really, really excited. Okay, here, a lot of the people who are sending stuff today are people we've seen stuff from before. This is the super talented team, another super talented family of Nora and Drake. So here we have Helios and his chariot. I think this is from Drake. This looks like his style to me. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff. Like really good, well done job. And then we have a close-up. Gosh, now this, I didn't read the caption. This is by Nora. I feel like this is maybe a Helios under his flame, but certainly looks like Apollo, right? But that makes a lot of sense. The two of them have been conflated a lot, especially from like in later antiquity and nowadays. If you ask like the average person on the street who's not a big myth head like us, like who's the god of the sun? They're like Apollo. But like, poor Helios, he's been almost completely forgotten. And then this is super cool. I've done a few pictures of this the last few days. This is the ancient Greek conception of the world as like kind of a flat disc. And you can see it's ringed by mountains. They hold up the sky. Here is Helios making his trip across. There's his palace in the far east. And it looks like the west in here because everything's reversed, but you know what I'm saying. And flies across the sky, bringing light to the world. Then he lands in his boat and goes back in the river Oceanus to where he starts from. And that's his whole life. He does that all the time. Let's do like one more picture since my iPad's acting up. I don't know, like seriously, iPad was working fine a second ago. It's just something about once I'm online, it's like, hey, you want to make this a real problem? Oh man, I have so many more drawings though. Okay. I'm going to do a couple more. I'm sorry, it'll just take a while. Now, here's one from somebody we actually haven't seen for a while. This is from Shiloh. If you watch earlier episodes especially, Shiloh would send in videos where Shiloh is some sort of brilliant poet who's able to improvise on the spot in the moment. He would do like these improvisational dances and odes. Oh my gosh, we haven't talked about odes for a while. Or paeans. How would I do an entire Apollo episode and not talk about that? There's so much stuff to talk about these gods. So here we have, they're labeled. This one is Helios, right? Of course, the big yellow one. This is Icarus, who is a character I haven't even featured yet, so way to go for bringing it in. I'm sweating. Over here is Daedalus. So you guys know the story of Icarus and Daedalus, right? They flew too close to the sun. It's a whole complicated thing. It's a story I mean to tell one of these days. And then here's feathers falling from Icarus because his wings melted. It's kind of a sad story. It's definitely one of those stories, though, that I intend to tell when I come back to Greek myths after Olympian. So you'll get to see my version. I've already done some pretty extent because it was going to be in Poseidon, I think. I can't remember what book it was in. It's almost gotten to a couple books. And I've done extensive design work for that one. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is another one from Yehi. He's like, it just came out so beautiful, I had to share it. I'm like, I agree. That is beautiful. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful Aphrodite. I love the kind of pink foam behind her. Kind of like, that's the pink foam she's born from. So maybe this is the moment she's actually appearing. Except for she is holding the apple already. So maybe she's just kind of like letting bubbles out. That sounds funny. Okay. Gosh, I really did get a lot of artwork today. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to show it all, especially with my iPad acting so silly. Oh, this one I wanted to show. This is from Moira. I love these colors. Again, we have the disk of the Earth. Seems to be an image that people liked. It's kind of a cool image, I admit it. And I've always liked things that it's almost like a map, right? And then there's Helios himself flying above it all with his chariots. The colors that Moira used in Helios and like the horses, I love this. That's beautiful. I love that you didn't use a black line, that you use this kind of like orangey brownish color to like it just makes it pop. Well done. I still have a couple seconds, right? I'll show some. I hope that nobody's getting sick of this. Oh, this is cool. This is from Addie, right? And this one is really appropriate given today what we're doing. Here's Helios. Here is Eos, the rosy-fingered Dawn, the poor sibling that we're going to kind of ignore in this, and I'll get into more on that later. And here is Selene. Nope, that's not Selene. That's Nyx. That's Night herself. We've talked about Night before. You can tell by the wings, right? And Eos is kind of like... I think I actually made some reference about this, how Eos's job is she comes before and she has to like shush away Night. She's like, get out of here, Night. You goddess that's actually the only goddess who's actually referred to as evil, so you're probably some sort of bad guy. I just love this whole idea. And you can see the changes of the colors. She's got her fingers out. You can see the way that Nyx's hair has turned the sky black. This is great. And also, I mean... every centimeter of this paper is covered. So, like, you really put a lot of work into this. Way to go. All right. I'm going to push my luck and go for 2 more. Sorry. So, actually, I have a question. If you are somebody who likes to do artwork and send it to me, I always say, please send it to email@georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. Now, a couple of people who tune in pretty regularly have told me they actually, for whatever reason, can't access this email. It gets bounced back or something. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. If anybody else is having a problem, like just let me know in the comments. I'll try to see it. So these are things that I've kind of got from other sources. It's a little bit hard to do this, and I feel bad for people who send me things not to my email because I tend to forget about them and overlook them. But sometimes people send stuff so much, or they just send such great ideas. Like I'll try to do it, but it's like I don't know what's going on. If anybody has any advice as to why a Gmail wouldn't work for some people, I'm open for yours. This is from CVQ Llama. So I had to make screenshots of this because so it's not the best quality. Now there's some words to this. I'm going to explain it, and this is really kind of sad. And this is like, I have to share this because I like to share sad things. This is Athena addressing the helmet that she wore when she came out of Zeus's head. And she's talking to her mother, Metis. Now, if you've read my book, Athena, there's the line that Metis poured the last of her physical essence into making that armor. And she's telling it, like, let me see if I can read it exactly. And she's going, Mater, I miss you. I think it says Mater. Maybe it says mother. Mater is what they would have said in Greek. So, and she's saying she's talking to the helmet because that's all she can because her mom is just a creature of thought. And you could kind of see Metis superimposed over her in the sky be like, I'm sorry, daughter. I'm like, this is tragic. This is like the saddest thing. And then CVQ Llama also sent me, let me see if I can get it open because like this is tricky. Why is it preventing me from opening this? Okay. And I think this is actually this one I'm not sure what it's just a really cool drawing. I really like it. Unfortunately I haven't had a chance to really see, but pretty cool, right? And then one last thing because I want to try to show as much as possible. And if I didn't get to show your stuff today, I'm very, very sorry because I mean, it's great that you guys send me so much stuff. I really shouldn't complain at all, right? So these are 2 drawings by Megan, who has sent us stuff before. Megan, she likes like kind of working out the potential romantic entanglements. So inspired, I guess, by Wednesday, she has Helios kind of holding flowers, which is like the sun's holding flowers. I guess they're sunflowers. And she's holding flowers, he's holding flowers, and presenting them to Hestia. The 2 clearly do have a lot in common. They're both flame-based. They kind of look similar. And Hestia's all like, oh! Now, that's kind of funny, because Hestia is one of those goddesses who she doesn't... And it says, Helios tries to date Hestia. And he's saying, would you be my flame? I feel like it's going to end bad for him. Hestia has been pretty clear. She's like, I don't like dudes. Sorry. And then we got one more, and this will be it, and then I'll start talking. This one I had to share because this is almost like a little bit of a preview for today. Megan draw Selene and Endymion. And like I like this design, and there's a guy I've not drawn yet. He kind of looks like the way I did before I grew a full beard, or like if you took Pan's horns off. I really like this. And that's going to be a story we tell today. So that is a perfect segue into talking about today's subject. Now, just in case you decide I'll show it up again, you want to send me your own drawing, I'll show it again. Gmail, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. Let us talk. Wow, I am sweating. This is going to be... It's going to be funny as this summer goes on. Like, I'm going to be this sweaty, hairy monster talking like, today's the goddess sweat. Selene, or Selene. I kind of go back and forth. A lot of people nowadays even just say Selene. It's a name that still exists and is actually kind of popular. The Romans called her Luna. She is, just like her brother Helios was literally the sun, she is literally the moon. The ancient Greeks, there was, there were some gods and goddesses that moved in mysterious ways, and you felt their presence in very subtle and mysterious ways, and you had to rely on faith they were there. But to see the Selene, all you had to do is kind of look up into the night sky. And most nights, she was there in one shape or another, which is something we'll get to later. So she, just like her brother Hyperion, is the sister also of Eos. I mentioned this already. She is decided... She's a Titan. I was coming back and forth. She's a second generation Titan, right? Hyperion, her dad, is a Titan. Thea, her mother, is a Titan. And sometimes the second generation Titans aren't quite Titans, but I like the idea that she is a Titan herself. So I draw her with this like very towering stature. There's if you saw the little advertisement I put, little notice I put on my Instagram for this episode, it's a scene from Zeus, where Zeus is talking about... He's sitting with Metis. This is before he assembles, assumes supreme godhood, when he's just come out of the cave and he's just finding his place in the world. And he's looking up and he's talking about how when he was a kid, he used to reach up and put his hand in front of the moon so it looked like he could hold the moon in his hand and just take it. And it's meant to show his ambition, how this is a guy who wants to rule the whole world. It's also something I used to do when I was a kid a lot. He'd be like, I'm squishing your head. I'm squishing your head. Wait, let me do it right. Yeah, ow, ow, ow. But, Metis makes the comment. She's like, I don't know, Zeus. I've met the moon. He's way bigger than you. She's way bigger than you. And that's kind of like a little joke I put in because, yeah, the moon's big. I wish I had actually, done a little research beforehand to see exactly how big the moon is. Not nearly as big as the sun, but certainly bigger than Zeus. Now, we could get into a question. Zeus can assume any shape. Can he grow as big as the moon? I guess so. I don't know where all the extra mass comes from, but, I'm just going off into like a weird spiral here. So, now talking about how the ancient Greeks could just look out into the night sky and actually see this goddess whenever they want. So, the moon, it plays an important part in in like almost all societies. And for the ancient Greeks, and to us too, because our calendar is generally... there's been a lot of changes, but it has its basis in ancient Greek's roots, and it's not unique. The months were based on the moon, because the moon lasts, the different stages of the moon. We all understand how the moon works, right? It's a satellite of the Earth, and I think it's 28 days or 30 days? Oh, I should really know this. I think it's 30 days. It's 30 days, of course. Every 30 days, it goes from, a complete new moon where it's not visible at all to a full moon and back again. So it's a really handy way to measure time, right? It's kind of cool. And Selene would go through these different phases. And the Greeks kind of further subdivided it, where, taking that 30 days... The first 10 days where she was a moon that was kind of like growing from nothing, right? That was like one section of the month. Then there was the 10 days in the middle where she was a nearly full moon or a full moon. And then there was the 10 days at the end where she shrank back down again. And that was kind of like, you see mentions of this, like I'm not an ancient astrologer, so I don't know all this stuff, but I see reference to this in stories. Like Ovid makes some hints about it. You find some stuff in the Homeric hymn to Selene, where different times of the month were considered more propitious or more better because she had a more fuller presence in the sky, which makes a lot of sense, especially in the age before electric light, when during a full moon at night, you had a lot of visibility, right? And so you scared away a lot more of the darkness, a lot more of that nix, so to speak. So the world had a lot less terror. It was a better time to hold festivals, better time for prayers, all sorts of things, right? But then during the nights when it was a full moon, it was kind of like bad. And actually you'll see like in some versions of myths, like Pausanias, who was a traveler, I mention him a lot, he mentions different festivals at different times when it's like in the early months, like the early stages of the month, where the moon is very small. Like maybe that was associated with the birth date or a festival of like a less than advantageous god. I'm kind of like speaking all over the place here. So getting back to the idea of like the month divided into 3, right? This is just something I came up with. So you kind of have these references in these old sources to Selene being almost 3-faced, like another goddess that we mentioned, Hecate. We did a thing. And she actually has more face than that. It's different personalities. Each night you look at the moon, she has a different face, right? I feel like I got to draw her at this point, right? Because I'm just talking in circles. So sometimes in ancient myths, just like her brother, she rides a chariot across the sky. I actually forego the chariot in my drawings of her because sometimes she's just on a horse without being pulled by a chariot, like a snow white horse. Sometimes she's just pulled by an oxen. Now, which version did I use in my books? I used both. I was actually, right before this started, I was going through my books to see which versions I did, because I knew I switched back and forth. Like, for instance, in Zeus, in that image when he reaches up and takes her out of the sky, but not really, she's on a snow white horse. But then in like the book Artemis, where she appears in the sky and heralds the birth of Artemis, we'll get more to that later, she's riding on the ox. I think I kind of like the ox better, so I'm going to draw the ox version. Now, this is a little bit smaller than it was, so I'm going to have to be careful not to run out of space. So here is draw some giant horns. This is the ox. There's its hoof. Now, you notice I'm drawing it almost as just a silhouette because, I mean, it's the moon. It was very luminescent. Now, I always talk about when I'm designing my characters, I look for actual references in ancient sources of writing as to what the goddess or god looked like, right? Turns out there's a fair amount of references to be gleaned about Selene. One of the things that's very interesting and I think speaks to her status as the moon, she's described as having a round face, a little bit full-figured. There's kind of language in there to show that she's a little bit she's full-figured. She's got a rounder form. She's not as thin as, say, Artemis, who's almost like a wiry figure. And that's because the moon, of course, you look up in the sky, it's a big circle. And there's a solidity to the moon that you don't get when you look at the sun. The sun, you can look at the sun too long, your eyes burn out of your head. You're like, oh, I'm blind. But the moon, you can really stare at and you could be like, okay, it's big and round. Now, I don't think they viewed her as like just a complete orb, because, I mean, then she's got some problems. But she did have this round face. And another thing, and this is super cool, and this is kind of like, she's described as having like long flowing robes. She's definitely like her brother Helios. I mean, I pretty much draw him nude. He's on fire, so you can't really see anything, but there's not really any clothes. But she's often described as wearing long flowing raiments. I don't know if that's meant to be like sometimes you look at the moon and it's kind of like hazy around it because the light comes down. I think it's meant to be like that. But she's also described as having horns herself. And that's one of the reasons why I like the idea of like the oxen. Like maybe like it also helps her distinguish her from her brother. You know, she kind of suffers from the same thing with the Artemis and Apollo. She's always going to be grouped with Helios because they're like brother, sister, and they are kind of opposite numbers. So I'd like to give her stuff like if she's just being a chariot pulling too, it's like, okay, whatever. She's a horned goddess riding through the sky on top of an oxen. That's super cool. And that's what I'm drawing today. So let's give her big horns. Now, among Titans, I should mention, it is not There's her round face. Now, I'm not going to really draw a lot of facial features on her because she's also described as radiant. And it's like the white light pours out of her, so you really can't see very much specific. You can see maybe a little bit more than you can her brother. I'm going to have her sitting side straddle. Let's give her some eyes. I don't think I normally draw her with eyes, but... And then normally, I kind of put the entire shebang in a giant circle. And let's make it... Sometimes there's a crescent, sometimes it's full moon. Something I noticed in some of the books, I don't even draw her in the sky at all. I just draw a full-on moon. Like in Poseidon, I think. I flipped through that really quickly. I don't actually draw her as the figure in the sky. But, so there we have... This is a version of Selene. Or Selene, or Selene, or however you want to call her. We could just go Roman and just call her Luna, right? So, I mentioned a few times there similarity she has with Hecate. I also mentioned similarity she has with Artemis, and that's kind of the elephant in the room. Let's talk about that. Much the same way as I mentioned earlier, if you ask an average person on the street who the goddess of the moon is, they're more likely to say Artemis than they are to say Selene. And that's because, as we've talked about in other episodes, the Olympians kind of were always expanding in popularity and kind of absorbing other gods and goddesses under their wing. And sometimes those gods and goddesses lost their identity entirely, and sometimes they just kind of had a strong association. And with her, it's pretty easy to see where this association comes with. I talked about how the moon plays an important role in the reckoning of months. Well, the moon also plays an important reckoning in many things about women. Women have their monthly cycle, of course, and then the ancient Greeks especially, they measured pregnancies in terms of moons. And you actually hear this a lot in like old-timey stuff. They say stuff like, it's been many moons since I saw you last. That's how they talked. They would say moons, because moons were this really excellent way of reckoning time. But because of the monthly cycle and pregnancy and all these associations with women, very early on, also the fact that she is a woman, Selene gets this really important connection in the minds of the ancient Greek people with childbirth and with women. And the goddess of childbirth and women is Artemis, right? Or she's at least one. There's a few goddesses of childbirth. We've talked about that, but it makes a lot of sense. And then Artemis, there's like, you'll see even Artemis in ancient art, like this goes back to ancient Greece, like she even has like a little crescent behind her too, almost like little horns, not quite as big as these horns where it's like her whole head, but you can see how this connection's made very early on. And it's my opinion that the connection of Apollo with the sun kind of follows the connection that Artemis forges with Selene first. Because there's really palpable connections there. Apollo, he's a god of like poetry and brilliance and radiance, but not in the sense of like physical light normally, and that's something that comes later. But you see pretty early on the idea that people are conflating these two goddesses together, Artemis and Selene. And by the Roman period, it's getting very notable. And then you even see sometimes in the Roman period, like, remember how I said, like, Selene has, like, 3 faces? You sometimes see, like, a weird, like, I'll use the word triad, where you'll see Artemis, or as they would call her, Diana, Selene, or as they would have called her, Luna, and Hecate kind of grouped together. I don't know if they were meant to represent those 3 different parts of the moon, or just that they were 3 goddesses with a lot of overlapping attributes and powers. So, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. Let's talk a little more about her family. In the Homeric hymn to Selene, which she's a character that doesn't play a huge part in myth. She plays less of a part than, say, her brother. Like I talked about Helios. Helios has a lot of kind of tattletale stories where, because he's up above, he sees everything and often tells on people for it. I don't think Selene, being a goddess of the night, not like Nyx, the goddess of the night, but the moon comes out mostly at night. You know, sometimes you see it late afternoon. You're like, what are you doing here, moon? Go home. But she doesn't get a chance to see as much stuff. There's less light, there's less happening, especially back in the day. So she doesn't play this tattletale role as much. But so she does have a few sources. The Homeric hymn tells a little bit about her, goes into a little bit about the idea of the months being separated into 3 and how some parts are better than others. Mentions that she has a kid with Zeus, a daughter named Pandia. And Pandia means like all bright or all shining. So some people think that maybe that is like the goddess of the full moon. And it's like one of those things, I'm always loath to kind of personify these gods and goddesses who appear for like one line of text in one thing and like don't really do anything and seem to be an aspect of like Elithea, the goddess of childbirth. Like Hera, one of her titles is Hera Elithea. I'm like, is Elithea her own goddess? She doesn't really appear in myths, or is she just an aspect of Hera? And so I'm like, is Pangaea really a child of Selene and Zeus, or is Pangaea just an aspect of her? Like when she's a full moon, she's like, hey everybody, today's Pangaea, boom, you know? I don't know. Other kids she has. Now this is interesting. She has 50 daughters with they're called the Menai? I might be pronouncing that wrong. With Endymion. Who's Endymion? We'll get to him shortly. We talked about him briefly already. And the Menai, it means the months. And now you might be like, whoa, wait, 50 months? That's like too many months. But it's not just for 1 year. So y'all have heard of the Olympics, right? That's a thing that goes back to ancient Greece. There was a period of time when they didn't, but the idea of every 4 years there being an Olympic Games to honor Zeus back in the day, that was a thing. And so for the reckoning of these 4-year cycles of time of these Olympiads were very important to the ancient Greeks. Those 50 months were the 50 months of the 4-year period. Now, if you do the math, 12 months a year, 48 months. There's like two. Did they move it back 2 months each time? I don't think so. I think that, I don't know what actually happens there. Like I said, I'm no astrologer. But I think maybe actually the lunar cycles, maybe if you actually really look at the moons, like as opposed to like the months that we have, which, is it's an artifact of things that the ancient Romans did. It's the Julian calendar. Maybe the months didn't match up. Maybe they are 28 days. Guys, I'm kind of talking out of my hat here. I don't know what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to have to do some corrections on astrology. If anyone is here for, who's an astrology fan, please jump in and correct me, because like I'm floundering. I don't know what I'm talking here. But yeah, she has 50 daughters. Maybe the ancient Greeks was like 50 is better than 48. And I'm like, who am I to argue? You guys made this up. With Endymion. Now, who's Endymion? Now, I said she didn't appear much in myth. And if you're thinking, she has one very significant myth. It's a myth that's retold a lot. Though really, honestly, there's not any really one particular great retelling that survives. Sometimes there's a story that in the ancient world was so well known that people kind of mention it offhand a lot. And like, for whatever reason, just from the vagaries of time and the way that things shook out, a really good written version of this story that's really complete hasn't come down to us. And the story of, okay, we know all the particulars of the story for the most part, but the story of Selene and Endymion, I can't really say that there's one version you should read. Actually, like the best version I could think of, it's like an Ovid, which is like a Roman thing, and it just, even then, he's not doing a full, in Metamorphosis, he's really concerned about stories where people transform. It's not really a transformation, this one, so he kind of just like relates it in relation to another story, and there's little bits and stuff we could piece together. Endymion, depending on the version of the story, is either just a poor old shepherd, I like that version better, or the king of Elise. The reason I like the shepherd version better, even though honestly there's more versions where he's the king of Elise, you know what? When we talked about Atalanta, I talked about this. I like some of my heroes to not be godly, right? Or like the royal family. Like, it would be nice, I like stories where the person is just like, hey, I'm just a normal guy, or gal, or, whatever. Like, I'm not like, I'm not like Zeus's grandson, or I'm not like, a mixture of 3 different gods, or I'm not like, I like Endymion as just like a plain old shepherd. He's not a super plain old shepherd, because Endymion is super hot. He's very, very good looking. And, every night he would just go, he'd be like, oh, it's getting dark. I need my beauty sleep. He probably didn't even need his beauty sleep because he's so good looking. And he would go in this cave in Lamia, I think, and he would go lay down and he'd go to sleep. And as she began her nightly travels every night, she would just see this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man, like as he heads off to bed. And she starts visiting him at night, gives him a gentle kiss. Now, because she's the goddess of the moon, and she's so closely associated with night, in some versions of stories, she kind of overlaps with like Hermes, who brings you your dreams, or Hypnos, who brings you sleep. She kind of has this ability to bring you sleep and dreams. And this is the part that's frustrating to me about this story. Because the idea of this beautiful man who's sleeping, and he's visited every night by his immortal beloved, who but he's asleep, we know this, okay? This is something, this is from Apollodorus. He writes, I actually should mention, he has a pretty good and relatively complete version of the story too. Apollodorus writes that there was this love between them. We don't really know how much Endymion loved her, but we definitely know that she loved him. Actually, we know Endymion loved her because Zeus gave him some sort of choice. Basically, Selene went to Zeus and was like, I'm in love with this mortal. He's a shepherd or maybe he's a king. I don't know. Who cares? He's immortal. But, I'm sad because he's immortal and mortal, and eventually he's going to die. And Zeus is touched, maybe because Zeus has a kid with her. Maybe Zeus just like, you're the moon, I used to try grabbing you as a baby. Or maybe just like, you're just important. Or maybe he's just feeling good that day. He goes to Endymion, and he gives Endymion a choice. And the part that frustrates me is I don't know what the other choice was. Endymion, this is what Endymion chooses. He chooses to be immortal, to be made immortal, and to never age, to retain his youthful beauty forever. But he will always be asleep. What was the other choice? I assume it was just kind of live out his life the way he was going to anyway. Well, you get to wake up, but you're eventually going to be, you get to like live a life where you're awake, but you get old and you die eventually. I guess, right? So, I don't know, it's just frustrating to me at the story. Like, maybe it's just so obvious. It's like, okay, I guess it is a choice. Zeus is like, I could give you nothing or I could give you this. So Endymion chooses this. He sleeps forever in this cave. And every night as she travels, I should have mentioned this up front, just like her brother, she comes out of the Far East, flies over, comes back. I don't think she has a boat. I think she's figured out some way to get back quicker because she spends time hanging out with Endymion. She visits him in his cave. And even though he's asleep, they still have this, it's like she enters his dreams. They have this rich, eternal love together. And he never wakes up again, but I don't know. I was sitting on my balcony this morning kind of thinking about this. I'm like, I was thinking like not everybody gets to do what they want. And a lot of us aren't afforded, like most of us aren't afforded in life the opportunities we want. Would you take, if it meant you were actually asleep, but you were dreaming and you got to be with your true love and you got to be with them forever and you were dreaming, so you could probably do other cool stuff like, oh, I'm gonna jump over the moon. Well, maybe not the moon because you're in love with the moon, but you could do anything you want. Like, would you want to do that? And it's like, I don't know. Your reality is a dream world, but it seems a very real dream world. I don't know. I was sitting there. I was kind of blowing my own mind. I'm like drinking coffee in the sun. I'm like, oh, it's deep. Can't wait to talk about this today. So and that's, man, I think this is one of my more disjointed episodes. Here's something else I should mention just to close it up. She's kind of associated with madness. We all know the word lunatic, Luna. Lunatic was a term because it's been perceived, and people argue, and depending on the source, people, like my mom is a nurse, and she swears this is true, that on nights of full moons that people act crazier. Maybe it's the extra light, maybe our brains need to be, or maybe it's just that there's so much lore associated with it. People are like, I'm a werewolf, whatever, who knows? But she was associated with madness too, which kind of puts her into the court of Dionysus. One of those interesting things, again, where we have a goddess, it's kind of like what happened to poor Pam, who everything about her kind of is overlapped with another deity. What's very nice about her, Selene, the one thing she definitely has and nobody else does, is a very physical reminder of her traveling through the sky every night. So no one will ever totally forget Selene because they just have to look up at night and they will see her. And I think that's my speech for her today. I look at my Spartan notes I took, Spartan in the sense that there's almost none, not the sense that I was trying to do like the Greek warrior culture. No, I think I got pretty much everything I want to say. So I'm going to open this up to Q&A, and I'm maybe going to draw, while I'm waiting for questions to come up, I'm going to draw one more of her, maybe this time on top of her horse, and maybe up a little bit higher, so you can kind of, see her face better. The round face, the long train. Train, by the way, means like a robe coming off you, not like she doesn't have like a cuckoo train, a choo-choo train off her. Full-grown man saying choo-choo train. And I really didn't leave room for a horse. So this is just going to be an awful George drawing. Let's turn it back to the other one. You know what's the best part? Come Monday, I'll be showing you all pictures that you drew of Selene. That's way better than what I did. Okay, so let's see what sort of questions we got. More real than our dream world anyway. I agree, Mr. Wizard Wannabe, which is a great name, by the way. My dream world is pretty weird, and a lot of times it's just about me being stressed out about meeting deadlines or walking through hallways I can't find my way out of. I have a feeling that Endymion's dream world is much better. Great question, T. Mackey. So how do the Greeks explain the moon's appearances in the day during her phases? I don't know. Like, was that like... Because she is certainly linked with the nighttime, but I don't think she was linked... Like, she definitely comes from a different familial tree. We went down there, like how Nyx and all those gods are like a different... They split off really early, like from chaos. They were like a whole different branch. So she's not so intimately linked that I think they're just like, oh, Selene's out a little bit earlier today. Maybe she was really excited seeing Endymion. Maybe Nyx went home early because she had a head cold. Or maybe, I'm not really sure. Eller would like to know if Titans can change shape like the gods. That's a great question, Eleanor. So this is... We're delving into the realm of like my own... Almost my personal headcanon. When I was working on Zeus... I did so much reading of different stories, and I feel pretty good. I read every single story about a Titan, or where Titans appeared in, and I'm pretty sure they cannot. I think that their defining feature was their, like, literally titanic size and strength, but you don't really find any references to them changing shape. And that was something that occurred to me, that's really the defining characteristic of an Olympian. Is that the Olympians constantly change shape. I mean, you have the Olympians. You have like some of the Olympians, like from birth, are already not taking human forms. Like they don't. We've talked about this many times in the show. They do not have human forms as the real forms. That's kind of something they wear as a default sometimes. Their real forms are like balls of energy. So I don't think the Titans can change shape. I even kind of in Athena. She's the second. Oceanides are second generation Titans. I always forget that. Oceanus is a Titan, and then his daughters are the Oceanides. Metis can kind of change shape, but it's not easy for her. And Zeus is like kind of teaching her how to change shape, and that's how he gets her to change. And of course she can change shape because we know she gets swallowed. And she kind of takes the different forms as he's coaching her, and that's the pretense he uses to like swallow her so that she doesn't give birth to Athena. But too bad she did anyway. From my daughter, it would be cool if Selene got bigger and thinner as the moon does each month. That is super cool, and some of the references I found do seem to hint about that. Or they talk about, and this is kind of a cool concept, that she would maybe turn her face to you, her round face, and then turn it away, which is also kind of cool. That's getting a little bit more almost metaphorical, but I like it, But like that is kind of a cool idea that like maybe she's like a yo-yo dieter and she's like expanding or maybe she like inflates. I don't know. Maybe their size is what makes them so powerful, so the Titans don't want to change shape. That's interesting. It's a possibility. One of the things I should mention that, and I maybe actually talk about this in Zeus, while the Titans don't ever seem to change shape, the Olympians do seem to be able to in the old stories, and depending on the version you read, they seem to be able to grow to match the Titans in size. And you'll see, like, especially like on vase paintings and stuff, they'll actually be, maybe some of that's the metaphor. I talked about how they don't always draw the monsters as big as the gods because, it's all about the gods. You'll see them like wrestling and they're the same size. And I actually made the decision very early on. I'm like, okay, just like I was talking earlier today about Zeus, could he get as big as the moon? Probably. An Olympian could presumably grow to the size of a Titan. In fact, there's even that one picture in Poseidon where I have him like where he's raging in the sea, where like Odysseus is in his little boat like, I've erred. Like they can get big, but it just made visually, it was a lot more fun and more interesting to have these small Olympians battling against these giant Titans to kind of show the emphasis. It kind of took, I really like stories where the hero is operating from a power deficit to the to the bad guy, right? Like, okay, Superman, he's like super duper powerful. They keep giving him new powers and stuff. Like, I've never really liked that, because like okay, like, shouldn't he have somebody? It's more fun if the hero really has to struggle against the bad guy. I do love that Superman's arch enemy is just a guy who's smarter than him, Lex Luthor. But I'm getting off base there. So yeah, they probably could get as big, but maybe you're right. Maybe the Titans just like, the Titans are so scared to lose their rule that they won't surrender that giant size. Scroll up, please. There are lots of questions. Okay, let me scroll up and skip a few of these and come down. Boy, it's going to be... I might have to do one of those days where I just ask questions again. Zeus gave someone a romantic choice. Off-brand. Yeah, that's a good point. Wait a second. Yeah, why? Well, maybe because he had already had a kid with her. He was like, done. Maybe he let... Wait, I don't even get that joke. Doesn't he transform into a grasshopper? Oh, that's actually a story about Eos. That's a different one. It's a very similar story where is granted immortality, but keeps aging and eventually wizens, which is a word, into a grasshopper. Let's see. Do you think Circe and other sorcerers might have learned magic from Selene? I am so glad you mentioned that, Astraeus, because that's actually something I should have mentioned, where you see it a lot in... I feel like I've been mentioning him a lot more recently. Can you tell I'm rereading it? In Metamorphosis, in Ovid, he has both Circe and Medea, when they are... who are sorceresses. They are like, that's actually... they'll be used that term, or witches. They actually will invoke Selene herself, and she seems to be... like a principal figure in there. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. I'm so glad you did. I suspect you knew. Yeah, so the actual, in magic, the sorceresses would evoke her, and she would actually like appear. They would be able to call her down upon Earth. So that's another cool thing about her. She's actually, it's kind of a fascinating character. I really am enjoying this deeper dive into Selene. Is the Oracle immortal? She answers a lot of questions in a lot of different times. No. So I'm assuming you're talking about the Oracle at Delphi. But there were many oracles. There was an oracle at Dodona. There was an oracle... I'm going to forget the other places. The oracles were... they were like a class of priestesses, or priests. I think they were mostly priestesses, though. The oracle at Delphi was called a Pythia, after Python, who was the original source of that thing. And it was different people at different time. It's important to remember, as far as the ancient Greeks were concerned, the Pythia was certainly a figure to be venerated, but she wasn't the oracle was a window for the whoever the god or goddess was that was speaking through that oracle themselves. So the Pythia I guess would be similar to like the Pope, right? The Pope is you shouldn't throw rocks at the Pope. People are going to be mad at you. But like the Pope himself is just supposed to be a vessel for God, right? He's speaking through. So the Pythia there would be different Pythias at different times. And it would just be in Delphi, it was Apollo speaking through, right? At Dodona, it was Zeus. Other places was other gods. Two things. If she relates to Hermes, we're talking about Selene, it makes sense that the guy is a shepherd. That is very true. Because, there's a lot... I just like the shepherd story better. And two, is she associated with wolves because people howl at the moon? Wolves... people howl at the moon. Because wolves howl at the moon. I don't think she is, per se. Although that does make sense that she would be, right? Guys, I really need to do clearly more research on this. Bringing the whole idea of werewolves in here, that's an ancient Greek myth, right? That the first werewolf was created by Zeus. It was this guy Lachaon, which means wolf, so the guy was probably a little bit of fate playing in there. If you name your kid Wolf and then later on he makes Zeus angry and gets turned into a wolf, that just reminded me of something that has nothing to do with nothing. You're going to be like, why did that remind me of it? Like, one of the cool variations of the whole Endymion story, the reason why he's asleep, is it's not that he was given a choice. Okay, so Endymion is the beloved of Selene, and Selene starts bringing him around to Olympus. And he comes up to Olympus, and he's hanging out, and he sees Hera, and he's like, bump, 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 bump. He loves Hera. And he makes some sort of attempt to pass at her, and Zeus sees it, and Zeus makes him fall asleep forever. So there's also the idea it's like a little bit of a punishment. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. Again, there's like 2 lines describing it, so that's all the detail. I probably just told you a more complete version than you'll actually find anywhere else. Let's see. When will you do an episode on the Titans? I've pretty sure I already did. I didn't do an exhaustive one on the Titans, but you're right. I should, I've done one on Kronos. I think I covered Atlas a little in it. It's one of the earlier ones. You could see it on my, which I haven't done today, so let me hold it up. My YouTube, youtube.com/user/GeorgeOlympians. But I should do one. The thing about the Titans, the episode would be, there's not a lot of, I love the Titans. I talk about this all the time. I stick the Titans in every book. I think the only thing to get into is Ares. There's not a lot of, after you get past the story of, them overthrowing Uranos and the Titanomachy, there's not a lot that they do. So it'll be an episode where I'm basically saying a lot of names and what they represent. But you know what? I think you folks like that stuff, so I'll probably do it. So maybe, haven't decided fully. I have a few ideas what I'm going to do for next week. Oh, and if you have any suggestions, please write to me at my email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com, about what you would like to see for next week. But maybe I will just do an episode just on the Titans. I feel like Atlas could get his own episode. Kronos already has had his own episode. Maybe Oceanus could get an episode too, but I feel like when you get to Krios and Polos and all those guys, there's Hyperion even, you're like, wait, no. Yeah. I mean, just be like, what do you have to say except for who their kids were and what they were the gods of? Did the Greeks associate her with the tides at all, or is that a more modern understanding? Springtree House, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I could just go into some baseless conjecture here, but it seems like, given that they were such expert observers of the natural world around them, and that the reckoning of time via the moon was so important, and they were such, dedicated and accomplished sailors and fisher people, they must, right? They must have known about that. I'm gonna have to do. Guys, clearly, I'm gonna have to do a redo of Selene one day. Let's see. My sister, and this is just a cute little bit. My sister and I used to pretend that when the moon was in the sky, it was because Artemis was yelling at Apollo for bothering her for stealing her stuff. I think you mean when it was in the sky, during the daytime. I love that idea. Let's just take it to where it's the idea. She's like, "Hurry up, Helios! It's my turn." And he's like, "I'm tired today. All I ever do is travel across the sky and back in a boat." He's just dragging. It's a little bit late. She's like, "Hurry up. I got stuff to do. I got places to be. There's this cave in Lamia. My boyfriend's sleeping there." Let's see. Did you know that Sailor Moon bases its core narrative on this one myth about Selene and Endymion? I did not! Wait, as I hit the thing and knock my whole thing. Holy cow, I mean, I knew that there was... I clearly knew Sailor Venus, Sailor Moon, all that stuff. I didn't know that there is... Wait, is Tuxedo the guy? Is he Endymion? I gotta do a deep dive now. It's been a while since I've watched Sailor Moon, clearly. What about the new moon? How did the Greeks explain that? Was she just on a date? Well, the one day she's not there at all? Yeah, that's the day she probably she just took the night off. She's like, "Look, my brother, bless him. The guy works hard, never takes a day off. I'm not going to be that guy. I need at least one day a month where it's just me time. It's Selene time. None of this flying through the sky. None of this making wolves howl at me. None of all this stuff. I'm just going to sit here, presumably in my cave. Or actually, maybe not even Lemmy. She sees him every night. Maybe she just hangs out in her palace and she just watches, I don't know, the empty sky because there's no moon. Maybe that's the day she comes out. Is there a myth where Hermes meets his mother Maya again after he went to Olympus? I could think of a lot of art where there's pictures of them, a lot of vase paintings and stuff and mosaics. I don't think there's any particular super notable story where he brings her there as an honored guest, but I could be wrong. The thing with checking out Hermes myths is his myths are legion. I talked about this when I did him. There's so many Hermes stories. There's zillions. He probably appears in more stories than almost anybody except for Zeus. So I'd have to really do a deep dive. That's worth seeing that. Plutarch wrote dialogue about how the Oracle of Delphi, the Pythia, worked. He was a priest of Apollo, and he still didn't fully, truly understand it. Yeah, this is from Plato, dear. Plutarch, he was a historian. I've mentioned him a few times, and he finished out his career as a priest to Apollo. And he wrote a book that was called something like The Obsolescence of Oracles, or something like that. And it was basically like, it's him talking about the different oracles. Him talking about he doesn't really understand how it works. In some cases, feeling like they don't work anymore. Like he had a faith that maybe they worked. And he is, like, it's really fascinating because I think he did write it before he was a priest of Apollo. So it seems like he wrote this and then later in life became, like, found his faith again. But yeah, so it's fun. You know, one of the things, a lot of these people I mentioned, Plutarch, Pausanias, they're not actually mythographers in the sense of someone like Hesiod who's writing these myths. They were historians, people who went around and recorded things of the world around them. But because the gods were such a part of the life of the ancient Greek world, like sometimes the only source of the myths we find is like these little like offhand mentions of things. A lot of today's stuff is actually things that come from historians, people writing things, like just little incidental bits they recorded about like the way a specific festival was recorded, was held at a certain time of the year because it was better to hold it during a full moon because you have more of the protection of Selene. Isn't Hera also associated with the moon? You know, it would make a lot of sense given her position as one of the goddesses of childbirth. And also, I feel like the fact that she has that connection in the Endymion story where Endymion, who is the lover of the moon, is actually, he meets Hera and is like, forget the moon. I feel like that's probably an underlying thing that she had an association. Now Zeus knows how Hera feels when he goes out with another woman, but probably not Metis. I know, Zeus needs a taste of his own medicine. New York on pause was extended till May 28th. Will you keep doing these, please? I think, unfortunately, New York on pause was extended, I think I heard, until mid-June. I'm going to keep doing these. I mean, I think what I'm going to do, let's just talk about the futures really quickly, and I'm going to have to end it here because this is going to end in 4 minutes. This has been really fun for me, and this has been really helpful to me, and I really enjoy all the feedback I'm getting and the artwork and stuff. So I think even after the world returns to a state of normalcy, at least, you know, some parts of the world are like, hey, who cares about germs? Let's just go out. After New York returns to a state of normalcy, I'm still going to be doing this, probably not 3 times a week because people have other stuff they're doing. We'll figure it out as we get closer. As the light at the end of the tunnel shows itself, I'm going to continue doing Geek Speaks Greek. It might be something I only do on weekends, if that works out better for people. I'll figure it out. Maybe it'll even be something that like will live on more as like a YouTube thing. Because I know a lot of people, especially people in other parts of the world, can't see this because it's just not a great time for them. I mean, yeah, if you're here, I know she's watching this at like 4 a.m. So like, man, more power to you. So I think that's it because we only have 3 minutes left. So let me wrap this up. Again, draw me your better pictures than the awful pictures I did today of Selene. And send them to me at email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. Oh yeah, and I don't understand why that address is like not working for some people. Maybe I'll try to create another email address or something. I don't know. But I'm sad that some people can't get stuff sent through. Maybe it's just a mistake or a typo, but they're saying it's not. So I don't know. Has anyone ever heard of Gmail doing this? And then if you miss an episode for whatever reason, or you want to go back and watch one again, or screenshot some of the cool artwork people put up, go to my YouTube. youtube.com/user/George Olympians. And watch over this weekend where I figure out what I'm going to do next week. If you have any ideas, send it to me. And thank you all for showing up, for watching. Thanks for all the support. And for Norse mythology, Nerd Speaks Norse. Probably going to steal that. All right, and I will see you guys on Monday. Bye-bye.